Cowboys All-Pro kicker Brandon Aubrey is supposedly looking for $10 million a year. Let's take a look at the kicker market and see how that stacks up against the last market setter, and if that aligns or if that's way far above and beyond where he should actually be. Let's go ahead and check it out. All right, so the first thing we got to do is stop comparing it to the running back that just got paid here in Dallas, that being Javonte Williams. He just got an $8 million a year deal, $16 million guaranteed. And listen, guys, they're two different positions. You can't compare what the middle running back market is to what the kicker market is. They're two totally separate things. All right. Now you can say, I value this position more or that position more, or I value going and looking for defensive players more. That's totally valid, totally fair. But when you're looking and saying, this guy deserves this or this guy deserves that, you've got to compare it to his own marketplace, that being the kicker marketplace. So when we look at Harrison Butker, for example, he is the last guy that set the market at the kicker position. All right, and I hate using average per year or average annual value as the indicator for the contracts because it's not really a fair representation of all the cap charges, the actual structure of the agreement, but it is an easy and digestible way to talk about contract numbers. So that's just what we'll do here. So when you look at Harrison Butker's average value, right, average per year, $6.4 million. And since that deal was signed, the cap has gone up about 20%. That was in 2024. We're now in 2026. Okay. So if you just take that number, say 6.4 million, right? Multiply it by 1.2 or 20%. All right. You're at 7.68 million. So that just accounts for inflation and nothing else. That's simply the inflation of the cap. That's your starting point. All right. And that's the same for any position in any negotiation. You wouldn't pay this guy $7 million if the cap inflated more than that. It just wouldn't make sense from an agent standpoint. From the team standpoint, they would love it. But you got to think of it from the agent and the player standpoint, okay? And now we know that he is by far and away, I think, probably the best kicker in the NFL. I think a lot of us can agree that he's at least top three, all right, if not the best kicker in the NFL. I think he's the best kicker in the NFL. So if I'm the agent, again, I'm arguing for that inflation plus a little bit more, all right? And that's where you come to about where I'm at, the $8 million mark. I think $8 million is a very fair number for Brandon Aubrey and his services. All right. And look, I'm not going to be the guy that down talks now all of a sudden what this kicker does for you. He's a weapon. We say it all the time. We talk about it all the time. The argument that the offense is lazier or the coaching, the play calling is lazier because they settled in for these 60-yard field goals. I mean, I'm not going to cut off my nose to make my elbow work better. I'm not going to get rid of an elite talent at the kicker position, make my special teams worse in hopes that my offense gets better. Like, just, that's a coaching issue. That's a player issue. That's not an issue with the kicker. I'm not going to purposefully get worse on one of my three units so that another unit can hopefully get better. Not by any additions player-wise, but just by play call. Like, I don't get that argument. I guess logically I understand what people are saying, but it's not something that I would consider. If that was the concern of the GM, or in this case, the owner/GM, I'd be like, hey guys, I'm keeping Brandon Aubrey. He can kick 60-yarders, but don't count on it. Like, just because you get that close, like, you still got to play as if you can't kick that far. I'm not gonna cut this guy just because you guys are relying on him to kick 60-yarders all the time. Like, I think that's silly to me, but that could just be me. I don't know. Now, something to keep in mind with this $10 million ask that supposedly the agent put out there. And I say supposedly because, you know, things tend to get leaked around negotiation time. One side trying to make the other side look bad. And the Cowboys always do this. So is this even a real thing? Was this something that somebody said in passing that got blown out of proportion? I mean, I don't know. But if it's a legitimate ask, do keep this in mind. All right. The salary cap year over year has grown about 10% for the past however long, like 5-6 years, right? Minus the COVID pandemic nonsense. Okay. But outside of that, the salary cap is exploding, guys. And the agents know that and teams know that. They've got forecasters. They're the agencies that these guys work for. They all know the financial forecast of the NFL. You got new TV deals that can be negotiated starting in 2029. So that's going to explode the league revenue even more. And so, you know, $10 million today is not $10 million tomorrow. It gets cheaper over time, right? It hurts a lot less to spend that money next year and the year after, all right? And the agents know this, and the teams know this. And so maybe this is part of the reason why they're going for such a large number, because if they're locked into a 4-year contract, they want to get as much money as they can. And they know that, you know, if you get $8 million today, in 2 years, you're going to be underpaid at that point, right? Maybe not kicker, but just generally speaking, these contracts are going to keep moving faster, and these players are going to get higher and higher amounts of money dramatically as this cap continues to explode, as the league revenue continues to explode. So maybe the 10 million isn't as crazy as we initially thought when you keep that in mind. Now, with that said, I still think it's a negotiating tactic. I still think it's a come in really high and settle somewhere in the middle type situation where the Cowboys want to pay low, the player and the agent want a higher amount, and they'll settle around that 8 mil that I mentioned earlier. And I think that 8 mil, again, going back to that, is extremely fair considering everything I mentioned so far. And then when you go and look at Harrison Butker's actual contract and the deal, the structure of that contract, right, you can see that this is why I don't really like talking AAV, or average annual value, versus the overall dollar amount and guarantees of the deal, because, you know, people think $8 million a year. Well, the cap's not going to get hit for $8 million a year. You can front load it, you can back load it, you can do numerous things. You can restructure it in the middle of it. So you can play with that money in numerous ways, okay? And it's not going to hit you for $8 million every single year. You can see here, you're talking Butker's deal was a 1.5% wise on the cap. 2.5% is what it tops out at. So if I got to pay 1 year at 3% for my elite all-pro kicker that can go out and win you ball games, let's not pretend like he hasn't won this team ball games, right? If he can go out and win me ball games, and I got to eat 3% of the cap 1 year out of his 4-year deal to do that, and the other years are around 2%, whatever, man. I mean, I'm cool with that. But remember, Butker's numbers here, his percentages will only get lower too, just like Brandon Aubrey's percentages will only get lower as the cap explodes and the league revenue continues to explode and the cap increases. You know, unless they do some restructures, the Cowboys, with the deal, and then they start moving money around, then who knows, you know, what happens at that point. But if it just follows the straight up structure as it sits, you know, when it's first negotiated, that percentage to the cap will just decrease. So keep that in mind, that $8 million per year isn't really $8 million per year towards what actually matters, and that's the salary cap. I think sometimes we just have to take a step back, just disregard the dollar amount, and you need to look at the percentages instead as it relates to the cap and compare it to other players' contracts and the structure of those contracts, okay, and those dollar figures, and you'll get a better idea of what $8 million in today's money actually means. All right, so then to wrap this thing up, first off, let me know what y'all think in the comments below. If you hate what I'm saying, let me know. If you love what I'm saying, let me know. Let's talk about it. All right, let's chat. I always encourage conversation. You can join our spaces on Thursday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern, over on Twitter. Just go to Twitter, search up Cowboys Storyliners, and we do those spaces. We all get together, hang out, chill right then and there, and just talk football. So you can catch us there. But for this one here, let's wrap this up. So you can see my tweet on Twitter, on X, whatever you call it these days. My official projection, my official prediction is going to be 4 years for Brandon Aubrey, $32.5 million. It's $22.75 million guaranteed, and an $8.13 million average annual value. And all I did to come up with those numbers, I took Butker's contract, I added the 20% to these to account for the salary cap increase, and then I added just a little bit of a buffer in there just to be safe. But that is my official prediction, and that's what I think this thing comes out on if they actually get the deal done. If they don't get the deal done, I mean, at the end of the day, they always have that second round tender to fall back on, and I think that might be what they do. That's a really strong option, a big possibility for this team to go that route. So with that said, y'all, I'm going to go ahead and end this one. Let me know what you think in the comments. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and I'll catch you later.